top 5 tight ends of all time?
Top 5. Well, Gronkowski's one of them, no doubt.
One of them?
He might be number 1 because he could block.
Anytime the GOAT conversation for tight end comes up, it always comes down to blocking for Gronk's fans. But what if I told you that argument is more of a Sterling Sharp is better than Jerry Rice argument? That's right. If we remove the asterisk of in his prime, we start looking at the total numbers. The reason I believe people want to look at blocking stats is because it's harder to pull up blocking stats to prove your point. So I did it for you. What if I told you your best ability in football is availability? Let's take a look at the numbers by Gronkowski and Kelce and see what they look like. You see, Gronk was asked to block on 47.2% of his plays, and Kelce was only asked to block 36.4% of his plays. So as you can see, Gronk was asked to block more. So naturally, you would assume he did block more. But what if I told you that's not the case, and not the case in the slightest bit? You see, the problem is Kelce has 10,669 snaps currently. Gronk had 6,415 in his career. And even if we adjust it to games played, Kelce would have 8,052 snaps at the time of Gronk's retirement. So the difference in coming off the field and staying on the field gave 1,637 additional snaps to Kelce. Now, a lot of people will say Gronkowski is basically a left tackle or a right tackle, but the problem with that is tackles do not leave the field, and Gronk did 10% more than Kelce did. And that doesn't include all the extra games missed by Gronk compared to Kelce. Now, this leaves 855.7 blocks more for Kelce. That means for more than a season's worth of blocks, basically a full season's worth of snaps for Gronk, was additional blocks by Kelce. You cannot block better from the bench. You see, there's 4,200 additional snaps for Kelce. And in those 4,200 additional snaps, the argument is not Kelce versus Gronk, it's Kelce versus Gronk's backup. And some people will say, you know what? It doesn't matter, Kelce's a terrible blocker. Well, the numbers suggest that ain't true either. PFF constantly has Kelce rated in the top 10% of blocking tight ends. Let's look at their blocking grades for Gronk versus Kelce. For run blocking, it is 70.5 for Gronk and 65.3 for Kelce. For pass blocking, it's 69.2 for Gronk and 66.7 for Kelce. The gap in the blocking grades aren't even as big as you would expect and as big as the people would like to tell you. That's what we're getting here. You're comparing Gronk's backup to Kelce. Can you name them? Can you name his backup? Now, if you look at the top 5 greatest tight ends of all time, you know what names generally don't come up? Ozzie Newsome, Kevin Winslow, Mike Ditka. You know why those don't hit the top of the list? It's because we care about more than blocking. And every stat suggests Kelce over Gronk except for touchdowns, and that window is closing, especially if you look at the postseason stats. And if we look at the postseason stats, suddenly you have the best weapon in NFL history in Kelce, who you're going to trade for and say, no, I don't want that. I want the guy that's always in the medical tent. I want the guy that's coming off the field 10% more. I want the guy that's played 50 less games. Tell me how that would make any sense. You get the guy that blocks less, has less statistical categories and everything. Look, you can double the amount of 1,000-yard seasons for Gronk, and he's still short. He's still short. You can add Antonio Gates to Gronk's stats, and it doesn't make a difference. What, you gonna add touchdowns? That's what we're going for? Look, there's no way you're gonna argue that in a career total, Gronk is outperforming Kelce in any category except for touchdowns currently. And that's an asterisk because we know Kelce ain't done. And I know a lot of people want to say Kelce is done, but let's look at this last season. This last season would have been a top 5 in Gronk's career. That's right. This washed Travis Kelce, whose performance wouldn't be in the top 10 of his own career, is still top 5 in Gronk's. Because Gronk missed time. We can't revision history and keep putting asterisks. Somehow, some way, tight end is the only position in the GOAT conversation that we allow an asterisk of in his prime. In his prime, in his prime, in his prime. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Gronk's prime was very short-lived. And especially if you start comparing it to primes of Kelce or Gonzalez or any of these other Hall of Fame guys like Antonio Gates. It's very short-lived. And let me know in the comments, now that you've finished the video, are you ready to finally admit Kelce's the better blocker? Because the backup don't count.